So we're going to be making a clay chameleon, and the first thing you're going to do is take your slab, which is a flat piece of clay, and lay it on top of a canvas bag. And the reason we do that is something that's flat like this will fuse right to the table if we don't, and we don't want that to happen where it gets stuck and we can't lift it off. Then you're going to take your leaf template, determine which way it fits on your slab, and use what's called a pin tool to cut that shape out. So it's almost like tracing, except that you want to press all the way down through the clay until you feel the table, and then very gently drag the tool. There's no need to push super hard. And if you go over to the edge, you can take that right off, almost like you're making cookies. Then I'm going to come inside the corner of the leaf and drag outward. Sometimes you need to wipe this off and just take it off like that to keep the tool clean. Back to the interior, outward. I'm going to trace right along the edge here and remove this. Wipe, inside, going outward, inside, outward. Okay, you can always touch up little things over here later. I'm going to come down to the bottom of the leaf and remove that. And just cut this out. Really easy peasy, like so. Keep wiping the tool. In, outward, in, outward. Make sure you hold the pattern down for yourself. I'm going to go along this edge. And before I lift it off, I need to get my final little parts here. Check everything real quick. And if you've successfully cut your shape, you're going to take the pattern off and you now have a clay leaf base. And the word base means that it's going to hold on and support the chameleon. We can pinch these little edges if we need to kind of put things back where they belong. And your table will have a lid with a little bit of water on there. You can dip your finger in, I don't have it right here, and just smooth these edges, because even though the clay is soft right now, bumpy little edges get rough in the kiln, and we want to keep them as smooth as we can, but we also don't want to soak the clay. So even right now I'm kind of smoothing it without water and it's going just fine. We don't want to be pushing this down or smushing this at all, because if we do that, we're going to lose this depth here that supports the entire thing. So don't do that. Keep it like so. Then we're going to take a carving tool, and they all have a loop on here like this. Different shapes. Some of them are a little wider, and if it's wider like this one, just turn it on its corner here and use the corner, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to carve a vein in the leaf just to make this more interesting, and I'm going to lay the tool on here, drag it away from myself, and it removes a ribbon of clay, and it creates an indentation. Even though this is fun to do, and sometimes, like, you know, you can get a little carried away. So we don't want to go really deep. I'm not pushing way down because that'll make the leaf fragile. And then I'm going to go over to my edges of the leaf. And each time I just pull this little ribbon off. Just drag it gentle. It'll do its job. There's no need to push really hard. Okay? And you might want to put your name on the back of the leaf now. Sometimes when we're working with this, it might get a little mushed, so we'll want to check it before we're totally done. But it might not hurt to just pick this up, flip it over in the palm of your hand, and with the pin tool, write your name in. No need to carve super deep. That's not going to do us any good to do that, okay? And then the base here, the leaf base, is ready to go into your bag. So you'll open your bag, put your hand right in there, gently tap out any air. Make sure it's sealed tight, that you actually hear the Ziploc sealing. The plastic preserves it so it doesn't dry out, but if this is open down here, then air can get in there and it's not going to preserve it. So we're going to set this aside. And each step of this, how much we get done, just totally depends on the day, and we'll just pick up wherever we left off. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make a chameleon body. And you're going to take a fistful, you see how that kind of right in my fist, a fistful of clay. And I'm going to roll this like a coil. And when I roll it, I can roll it right on the table because we've actually found that number one, the canvas dries things out, and number two, we can get more rolling action on the table. So squeeze that into a ball for starters. Okay. Maybe take a minute to smooth out the little lumps. Might look nicer that way. Okay. And then I'm going to start rolling back and forth until this becomes less of a sphere and more of a cylinder like this. And once I've done that for a minute or two, I have a good diameter here, and I don't want that to get a whole lot thinner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start rolling on this end only and create some length here. It's going to take quite a while to do that, because what will happen is the wider part will be the body, and the part that becomes narrower will be the tail. It's going to take a lot of rolling, so back and forth, back and forth. Kind of hard to do this around my camera. Keep your hand on this end. I'm not putting my hand up here because that part I want to stay wide for the body. So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I keep tapping it because it keeps my shape round. A lot of people we're kind of getting a flat body. I think that just kind of happens. Like when you roll it, it might flatten out a little. And by tapping it, I just keep things the shape I want. So this is starting to go from wide to thin, and I want this even thinner. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try to speed it up here just for the sake of your time. But again, my hands are not down here. They're staying on the end that I want to get thinner. And it doesn't have to be too thin, otherwise things become fragile. This is actually perfect. It almost looks like a carrot stick that you got out of a bag of carrots or an icicle. So thick, down to thin, and it's fairly round. You can see that on the end. That's good news. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is score the tail and get it ready to curl to the chameleon tail. The slipping and scoring is the most important part of making things attach because it's what holds everything together. So I'm going to leave this area up here alone, and about here where things start getting thinner, I'm going to use my pin tool, and I'm going to create some deep scoring marks, okay? What those do is they allow the clay glue, which is called slip, the stuff in here, to get in the groove and hold things, okay? Otherwise the slip would just sit on top and slip around, literally, and it wouldn't do anything. So when you use your slip, you need a good amount like this. Put it right on top of the area you scored, but just kind of dab it on there. There's no need to push and smooth, because if you do that, you're getting rid of your scoring marks. So I just dabbed it on. I can still see the scoring underneath. And then I'm going to curl this up. And when I do, I'm going to curl it a little ways like this. But before I go further, I'm going to score here. Because what I want to do is I want this to grab onto that with the scoring. So that's done. And then I'm going to keep scoring as I roll it. So I scored there, and that grabs on below. Keep scoring right here. Make sure you can see. This scoring is going to go onto this one, and in fact I need a little bit more. But if I need more scoring, I need more slip to hold it together. Okay. And then this scoring here will turn and grab onto that scoring there. And you decide on your body length. I think I'm going to take mine in just a tad more because I found that when it's a bit compact and not too many loose parts, we're less likely to have things breaking. So a little bit more slip to merge these two. You can always wipe your hands on the mat. And then press that together. Okay, and now I'm happy with it because I've got body and I've got a tail that's compact and it's secure. All this stuff here, you can kind of gently wipe it in a way. I don't want to mush it around too much. This side doesn't look quite as bad. Okay, but that'll soak in, no big deal. If you have any little cracks like this, take a little bit of the moisture from the slip, not really the clay, just the wet moisture, and put that on there, and that'll smooth it right out, okay? So then your body can be stored into your bag until the legs are ready to attach. So you're gonna open your bag up, lay it next to the leaf. I'm gonna show you, not on top of the leaf, it's next to the leaf so it doesn't fuse together. And then be sure to seal this so that air doesn't get into the bag. And at the end of each day, we will store our bags until we're completed with the project. So the next part is to make the legs. And again, you're gonna take a small handful. You don't want the legs super tall because it just becomes more fragile that way. So start off rolling like a ball. And then I'm going to roll a coil. A coil is just kind of like a snake shape. Back and forth, right on the table. You'll get a much better roll that way. Okay, the more back and forth you go, hopefully the rounder it'll be. Eventually 2 hands. Trying to maintain the evenness, sometimes tapping down to keep it round. And the legs aren't going to be huge, so you don't need this a whole lot bigger than this, which is about the length of my hand, roughly. Okay, so that's decent. You can adjust as you think. And I'm going to cut this piece into 4 legs, 4 pieces. So I'm just going to use my pin tool and go 1. I've got half of this, 2, 3. Half of this would be 4. Now, I'm going to show you how to attach this. A couple people have sort of, actually I think one person, she sort of shaped this and she really got in there and made these little feet and things like that. A lot of people did not do that. It just depends on, like, if you're, I don't know, thinking outside the box and want to take this to another level, just depending on your abilities and your skills and your thoughts. But even the one I made, I just made it out of these coils. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. So when I'm ready to attach them to the body, and all of this attachment is really important, I'm going to take my body out. I'm going to hold them upside down in my hand, and I kind of know back legs here, front legs here, and I'm going to score deeply where you want it to go. Remember that if we don't score deeply, it doesn't provide an area for the slip to get into. It gets into those grooves and it kind of adheres. Okay, so I've got my 4. I can lay that down real carefully. And then the side of the leg that's going to get attached, oops, needs to be scored as well. So there's 1, 2, 3. You can always smooth things later. 4, but I think on this camera angle you can see that I'm really digging in there and I'm putting it on the whole surface. The better you do that, the better off your attachment's going to be. Then I'm going to hold my chameleon upside down in my hand to support him, and I need some slip. Again, don't be, shy on that. Use a good amount. Stick it on there, but don't rub it all around, okay? Wipe your finger if you need to on this. Take a leg and this scoring, is going to match up to this scoring. Place it on there, give it a push, and before the other legs go on, use your finger to kind of smooth the leg into the body like this. If you do that, you're going to have a really strong, let me move these out of my way, just a really strong attachment. Nothing's going to go anywhere on you. And especially from the outside view, taking a minute to do this also makes it look nicer. It makes it look like one connected body. Okay, so there's one. Now I've already scored this, and I've already scored these. So I need the slip. Again, use a nice finger full. Put it on there, but don't rub it all around and push it. This scoring goes on this scoring. Give it a little push. You'll kind of hear it smushing together. And then use your thumb or fingers to almost erase these lines here. Okay, I'm going to flip it on this side. I do that just by rubbing. And if something gets squished or bent, I can put it back how it goes. But take the time to do this. It'll look nicer, and it will also make the project more secure. Okay, so I've erased those lines. I've blended the leg into the body, and I'm ready for my last two. I noticed that when I've been holding this, I kind of covered that scoring up, so I want to fix that. It needs to be present there. Okay, now I've got my 1-2 spots. This is still scored. Take your slip, lay it on there without rubbing it in. Scoring onto scoring. Push a little bit and use your thumb and fingers to fuse the leg to the body and erase that line just a tad. It's a little trickier when you have two here to get your fingers in there, but just a little bit. Doesn't have to be a ton to work. See how my finger's right in between there? And I feel it moving around a little bit, so I just want to do a little bit more of this rubbing from the leg into the body, and that's better. I've got 3. And again, check this. If I have covered it up by accident, score that again. Take your last leg. Place the slip. Wipe your finger if you need to, and take this. Put it on here like this. Okay, and just like we did before, smush the leg gently into the body just by pushing and rubbing like so. When the clay is still soft, you can adjust it if it gets, moved around a little bit or something. Okay, and now I've got the body and the tail all created. I'm ready to put it onto the leaf. So I'm going to very carefully set the chameleon down. Oops, that. And I'm going to take my leaf out of my bag. I like to support it on my hand. And then put this side facing up. The base has to be on here, on the canvas. Even though we were rolling on the table, that's because it wasn't a flat piece, but a flat slab needs to be on the canvas or it's going to fuse on there. Decide where your chameleon's going to sit. Make sure you know that there's going to be a head on here, so I may want to back him up a tad. See if he's going to go straight or turned or which way he's going to face. And then I'm going to take my pen tool and I'm going to kind of outline his feet, almost like I'm tracing kind of on paper. You can see those marks down there. Go around the back. Okay, let me zoom in. See how I trace the foot? Now I know where I need to score, so I'm going to lift him off and I can see those marks. I'm going to score deeply because I've got a big, heavy object to put on this leaf, so it's not going to be noticed anyhow. Okay, scored that deeply. And both items have to be scored. So I'm going to hold him in my hand. I'm kind of cradling this in my hand very gently. Take it easy on this scoring so I don't smash anything. But I'm still pushing deep. I'm letting the tool do its job. Score, 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 score. Score here on the whole foot. And then I need a little hunk of slip on each part of the leaf. Don't rub it in. Just put it on there. Because when you push the body down, it'll sort of grip into these scoring marks and fuse into place. So I've slipped all four. I'm going to take the lizard, the chameleon, put him on there, and then I'm going to try to get my hand out of the way so you can see. Give a gentle push maybe on his back, not too hard, and use your fingers, I think you can see at this angle, to kind of smooth the foot to the leaf. If you do a little bit of that, you just know that it's going to have a really strong attachment because you didn't just sit it on there, but you have fused one object to the other with this pressure, and I can always fix that. I want to do the other side, so I'm just going to turn this. You can turn it as well. Okay, right now that's not really on there so good, so I want to push this down. Just kind of get my fingers in there. I can always readjust the shape, you know, if I squish something, but I want to make sure that foot's touching. And then I'm smoothing it down to the leaf. And then I can put my fingers in there and fix the shape if I want to or need to. You can do touch up on the body if I want to, if I need to erase that line anymore. Like that. Okay, so you can still adjust things a bit. And now my portion here is ready to go into the bag again until the head is done. So I have more on here now, but I'm going to carefully stick my fingers under this leaf and support it always. Open the bag up wide. Stick the chameleon in there. Don't do any pushing here. Maybe just get the air out gently. Seal it up, and then that will maintain its moisture until we're ready to put the face on, or the head. And our final step here to do the head, this is kind of the fun part. You give your chameleon a little bit of personality. We're going to take almost a golf ball size, so not too big, amount of the clay. Squeeze it all together tight, then you'll know how much you have. Okay, so about a golf ball. And I guess the more that you roll this and get it into a nice looking sphere first, right on the table here, you're probably going to smooth out any cracks and be happier with the final shape. So get your sphere going. Then you're going to tap one end, and that flattened it out. That will attach to the body. So tap, tap, tap to get this flattened out. And put the flattened part to the side. And then on this side, I'm going to use my fingers kind of like this to pinch and smooth this face into what's going to look like a nose. So the flat part's down here still, and maybe it's even easier to do that. Put the flat part in your hand and kind of pull upward all the way around. That might be a good way to do it. That. And what we wanted to do there is get this to taper. So here's my flat part. It's no longer perfectly round, it's going triangular, just a little bit. Okay, just a little bit. Take your pin tool. The flat's over here, so here's his nose. Turn the pin tool on the side. Press it in, see, to get his mouth. And then you're going to kind of stick your finger right in there to open this mouth up a little bit. And remember, if anything changes shape, you just smooth it back the way you wanted it. So from a side view, I have this. And I'm just checking things out to make sure everything's how I want it. And I've got a head with an open mouth, like that. Okay, I'm gonna set that down. Now I'm gonna create two eyes. And they don't need to be very big. So a very small amount here, not a whole lot bigger than my nail. Roll it into a ball, and flatten it like a cookie. And then it's a good idea to hold this up, because if it's way too huge, and I think that's kind of big for me, remove some, start over. Roll the ball, flatten it like a cookie. And then, if that's a good size, I think that's much better, you can score where the eye is going to go. Let's make sure I'm on camera. Score where the eye is going to go, nice and deep. Score the back of the eye, because remember, both objects need to be scored. Take a bit of the slip, place it right on there without rubbing it in or, smoothing that out too much. Wipe your finger. Pick the eye up. I can gently kind of push on both sides. And then I'm going to take a marker cap and I'm going to stamp the pupil, and you can either leave it like that, or I kind of like the double look, so I can take a wood tool, or I can take the end of this is good, and I'm going to press again to get almost like a highlight in there. This one. Okay, so I've created the eye. Now I do the exact same thing on the other side. Take a very small amount of clay, about the size of your nail, roll it, flatten it like a cookie. Hold this in my hand and score deeply. I need to score the other part of my eye. Make sure you get some of this thicker slip, not just water. Put that on there. Okay, wipe your fingers on the canvas bag. That's what I'm doing off screen. Take this scoring, match it up to this scoring. Give it a little pinch. You can always wipe that with your finger. Okay, check it out. And then I'm ready to use my marker cap on this side. Press. If you want the double pupil, I'm just seeing I put that on the bottom over there. Press. This head's looking really cute, really good. I'm ready for a tongue. A tongue, again, is going to be pretty little. Teeny, teeny, teeny. If the tongue is too big, it could break in the kiln, because anything that's really fine, super small, sticks off of an object, it's just susceptible to cracking. It's just how clay is. So I'm going to roll a coil. I'm going to curl this up, and I'm going to try to do what I did on the tail, even though it's smaller. Score. Put a little bit of slip so it's not such a mess in my hand. Roll this up. Try to score this too, just like we did on the tail, so that scoring grabs onto scoring. This, I can always clean that up later. Okay, so you've got a little loop of a tongue there. That side looks nicer. Then I need to score in his mouth, even though it's little. I'm gonna hold him in my hand. I'm gonna put the pin tool right in his mouth. Score right where the tongue belongs. That's important. See if you can kind of see that a little bit. Score the bottom of the tongue. And then I think it's easier to take this slip and put it in his mouth. So I'm gonna put that in there, almost like I'm feeding him. It's kind of funny. Put the slip in his mouth, wipe my fingers off, and then take this scoring, put it onto the scoring in the mouth, and sometimes it's hard to reach in there, so I think I'm even going to use the bottom of the pin tool or something, because I want to press so that tongue is attached. It's not sticking out too much. Okay, then I'm ready to add the head to the rest of my sculpture. So I'm going to very carefully take it out of my bag. And even though I haven't been working on the mat, I have a flat piece here, so that needs to go on. I don't want my final sculpture to get stuck. We had flattened the body here, so I could do some scoring on the entire thing. Real good. Carefully flip your little head over and score here, maybe in the opposite direction. Now, this is a large piece, so I'm going to take quite a bit of slip. It's 2 fingers full. Make sure it's on there, but I'm not mushing it all down, okay, because I don't want to get rid of that scoring. And I'm going to take this, make sure you can see, place it right on the body, like that. Hold on to the body and his forehead, and kind of smush it together. Oh, it's looking good. But if you can see all that right there, let's see if I can get a good camera angle. Support his chin. If you fuse this together with your thumb like I'm doing, it's a lot less likely to break because there won't be any crack there anymore. So I'm fusing the head to the body. Looking good. I'm not going to worry too much about that yet. To do the bottom of it, I'm going to very carefully put this in my hand upside down and see how my thumb is sort of holding this up so that things don't totally fall apart, and get the other hand in here and smooth. Okay. Just the best you can. Doesn't have to be perfect, but that little bit of smoothing under his neck is going to help. I'm going to turn it so I can get this side. So I'm just reaching in there. Now I'm going to set them down. Trying to get my hands out of the way in the video. Carefully work around this eye. It can be done. Okay, now the body is fused for the most part. Just check everything. Turn them this way instead of picking them up all the time, and I need to fix this, so I'm going to just kind of get my fingers in there if I can. Push a little bit. Now his head is fused, and he's ready for some texture. The texture is kind of the finishing touch. You can take any of the, these are a ribbon tool because they pull off a ribbon, any of these, and I just, you can see on here, just dig at it a little bit. However, you're digging gently. I like to go all the way down the feet. Make sure I'm on camera. Remember that a sculpture can be viewed from all sides, just like huge sculptures that you might see in a city or in a museum. People walk around them and you can see it from different angles. So we need to think about that when we're doing the texture. So I'm going to turn them. I'm going to think about texturing his tail. And I'm holding onto it so that it's supported. I don't want anything to be coming apart when I'm texturing. Texture the side of the tail, the very back of the tail, and this side of the body. Just gentle with this. You don't want to pull anything apart by using the tool too hard. But it kind of just not only gives the realistic look of scales, but it just adds some interest to your sculpture. You can go all the way around the little loop there. Decide how much you like. Even in here a bit. Back of the legs. Front of the legs. Tip them up a little bit so I can reach. And do a little on his head, but I want to support his head. My hand's under his chin. Support the little guy. A little bit down here. A chameleon sculpture is complete. And we'll let it dry out about a week and a half, because what happens is all the moisture particles and the dampness evaporates and it becomes bone dry in order to go into the kiln and be fired. And there you have it.